the challenges I had in my own agency and the things that kept me up at night. And I'm sure, it's that one big client that makes up 35% of our revenue. And if it goes away tomorrow, where am I going to go? And so what having your ICP and having a repeatable sales motion does is it protects you from that fear and not being reliant upon the big fish that if you lose, you don't replace, you have to lay off half of your staff.
Welcome to Show Me the Nuggets, where each week Joe chats with world-class entrepreneurs to find out the key principles, strategies, and processes that lie behind their outstanding achievements. Now, your host, the no bullshit serial entrepreneur, Joe Troyer.
I guess relating it back to the audience, if you're a digital marketing agency owner and you got a 7-figure a year business, but you're in that rainmaker seat, right? And you've kind of made it by hustle and grit, determination, building a little bit of, a name in the industry, I would say is kind of like how a lot of smaller 7-figure agencies get there. And they don't have that, as you said, repeatable sales motion, right? Mm-hmm. They really don't even have an ICP, right? Mm-hmm. Their product is shards and lots of made up different things. And I guess what advice would you give to the person in that seat?
Yeah, great question. I think you hit on it earlier. Some people, that may be what they want, and I think here's the filter that I would say. What I have seen time and time again, the ceiling on that type of business where you are no longer the chief rainmaker and you pull yourself out of that and doing all of it, is probably a $2 or $3 million agency. That's probably the ceiling on it. And that's if you're dang good. So if you're a phenomenal salesperson, you're a phenomenal leader of people, you can get people motivated to do things even without systems and processes, but you're going to be worn out, you're going to be overwhelmed. Sure. And so if that's the size of agency you want and that kind of lifestyle, feel free to do that. But if you're looking to build a $5 to $10 million agency, it's going to be essential. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it, where you're going to have to be willing. What I always say is that you have to deprogram what makes your sales process unique. There are certain things you have to do in the sales process. And most of these marketing agency owners, I'm sure you know that because you're probably coaching people on it, but you don't do it for yourself, kind of the dog fooding it, eat your own dog food. And so, and I had to do this with BusinessAccelerator, honestly, because when I stepped in at Hyatt, I sold our first 400 seats to a $15,000 coaching program. And even though my name wasn't on the door, my face wasn't, but people got to know me as BusinessAccelerator, even though it wasn't my thing, it was still Michael's thing. But I sold the first 400 seats that I literally, and it was it was kind of out of necessity in the business. We're hey, this is an idea. We've got this momentum. Let's just do it. We had all these leads coming in and we didn't take time to build out the sales process. So I had to actually, what I would say is kind of deprogram my mind to be okay, what do I do in the first 10 minutes and why? Naturally, we all know we need to build rapport. So how do we build rapport? What's unique about our company and how we build rapport? What do we want to say in that rapport building phase? And what I would say is then, this is like a sales call, but this is email, any type you have a conversation with someone, there's something you as the business owner that's doing unique that if you just hire a salesperson, they're not going to do. And I don't know how many business owners I've talked to, I've gotten burned so many times because I've hired a salesperson and they just don't do what I did. And guess what? They're never going to do what you did. If they can do 80% of what you did, that's a win. Sure. 80% of what you did is a win. And so you've got to be willing to work with that person and not just be hey, here's our company, here's some customers, go talk to them, but really spend some time in the trenches and helping them understand what made your unique process tick. And what I would say that create the products is you've got to standardize your products, because if they're working for you, the business owner, time and time again, they're going to be scared. And they don't feel like they have the freedom, no matter how much you tell them they've got the freedom to make it up on the fly. They're not you. They're not the business owner. They don't know the financials. They're going to just sell what they see and what they think the product is.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Yeah, lots of good stuff in there. Deprogramming the sales process. I see it all the time. People hiring commission-only salespeople and thinking like it's just going to work. Like it's a dream because like I don't have to train them. They only like get paid if they actually work. It's like, well, then what are the chances you think that this is actually going to work out? Like,
Totally.
what's the training that you give them? Well,
Mhm.
I send them over this document that says what we do and our packages and what commission they get. I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
yeah,
Well,
probably
and the
not
reality is if they're really that good at doing that, they're probably running their own company.
100%, 100%. So yeah, I love that analogy, like the name that you gave it, the deprogramming, because it is like it's like literally peeling back the onion layer by layer and like looking
Mhm.
at it from a third point of view or a third party view of like, how am I doing this? That's getting this result, because you don't know, like it's
Yeah.
repetition.
And it's the hardest thing. I mean, in the info product space, that's the courses that work the best are, people that have people around them that have actually deprogrammed the things that make them tick. Like I think of our course at Hyatt, which was 5 days to your best year ever, which is a goal setting program. We didn't set out to create that product. What ended up happening is Michael was sharing with us one day about his goal setting process at the end of the year, getting ready for the next year. And it was just going to be a master class in our low cost monthly membership. And we were all like, no, this is actually this feels bigger than that. Like we need to like productize it and help him kind of pull back the onion. And that turned into a course that we launched every year in December and January. It was a multi, $2 to $3 million launch every year. And if we wouldn't have seen that opportunity, it would have just been a free training, 90-minute masterclass as part of a $39 a month membership.
Yeah. Crazy the pivot that can have, right? Like this little one-time masterclass you're going to run, or special training, and it becomes like this huge standalone alone product all by itself. Love that. The other thing I think that you said was the really cool, and you were kind of piggybacking on a previous comment that I said, was like you don't have to scale, right? Like where do you want to be? So you talked about kind of 3 ranges, 1 to 3 million. You can probably get away with just being the rainmaker. 3 to 5, like you're going to have to make some changes and get yourself out of that position, and make some key considerations to really scale. So I'm curious, I guess, at what point do you think it's really important to really nail down your ICP and kind of your products? I see a lot of agency owners that the agency owner is that rainmaker, and they're kind of able to, in a couple of years with some grit and determination, get to that $1 million a year mark themselves. And then it's like, well, can I just continue here? Should I really go after and build an ICP? Like, they're kind of an agency that does all sorts of things with all sorts of different, products. And I think it's like one of the things I get asked the most by an agency is like, I've made it to here, like just out of dumb luck and sure determination, right? Like, how important is it that like I really start to nail ICP is really what they're saying, and then also the products that go with it.
Yeah. Honestly, I would say it's even at the sub 7 figures. I mean, I know probably there's people out there that are at 7 figures and don't feel like they have that, or maybe not even a necessity. But what I would say, and I know looking back at kind of the challenges I had in my own agency and the things that kept me up at night, and I'm sure, it's that one big client that makes up 35% of our revenue. And if it goes away tomorrow, where am I going to go? And so what having your ICP and having a repeatable sales motion does is it protects you from that fear and not being reliant upon the big fish that if you lose, you don't replace, you have to lay off half of your staff when that contract is up, And so if you can get that done sooner, sure, you can continue to be successful and have growth and all of that. But until you can't, until that one big fish is gone. I mean, I see this all the time in like the biggest agency here in Nashville, Paramore. They lost a client that was about 25% of the revenue, and guess what? They had to let go of 25% of their staff. Just kind of unfortunately the marketing agency kind of model, but it protects you from that happening. and helping being really clear. And then you get the right type of clients too. You don't have those pain in the butt clients. You're just like, oh man, I gotta hop, I gotta do this today. But you really get the clients you want to serve. And then you just enjoy your business more. I've seen it time and time again that when you get that clarity and, there is that, what I would say, limiting belief that when can I get to the numbers that I want if I niche down or if I get really clear about these customers? And the answer is always yes. Amy Porterfield says this all the time, and I've spent a lot of time with her. The riches are in the niches, and she helps people get clear on their niche, which is helping you identify your ICP. Is own that, and there are riches in the niches.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's great advice. Well articulated. Thanks. So I want to jump over for a little bit and talk about kind of Michael Hyatt a little bit more before we wrap this thing up. So I'm curious, like, as you zoom out, like the results that you achieved, the company achieved together, while you were there during your tenure, like, was explosive, like crazy results. I'm curious to have you articulate, like, what you think was the 80-20 that really, led to that company's explosive growth. And I guess even if we pull it back a little bit more, right? If we take Pareto's principle of 80-20, we apply it to itself, and we got the 64-4, right? Like, what do you think that is? Like, what were the major levers?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I love this question. I think people ask all the time, hey, what made Michael different than the other, info personalities that, they have a good businesses, $5 to $10 million businesses. That's a great business, but we went well beyond that. And part of it was Michael has a lot of business experience. He ran a $500 million publicly traded publishing company. He's hired people. He's built structures. So I think he had an appetite for staff that a lot of these infopreneurs don't. They just bring in contractors and all of that. And because of that, one thing we always said as an executive team, there's no sacred cows. We're willing to kill things, even if it's working, but it's not the future of the business. And we had Michael had a clear vision of where he wanted this business to go. And which meant, when we, in our strategic planning year, like I remember 3 years in a row, we had a pretty big shift in our strategic plan 3 years in a row. It was just kind of getting dialed in year over year every time when we said, okay, we are going to own helping small business owners and leaders, kind of this next layer down, potentially leaders inside larger organizations, get the double win. So at the end of the day, we were motivated by helping people get the double win at work and succeed at life. And there was, and we had to have an element of coaching in everything that we did, even if it was a planner, which is a physical 90-day executive planner. So when we were willing to shift from courses to the planner and go from an 80% margin product to a 50% margin product, because we knew that we could reach more customers and we knew it would create greater transformation, which would create greater word of mouth, we were willing to do that. And so we were able to spend $1 to make $3 and get the right customers and have this physical product pre-COVID. At one point, it was in every boardroom of the Fortune 100 companies. So pre-COVID, they plopped that planner down, and at Apple, and we had this conversation. I talked to their CMO, and Tim Cook was like, "Hey, what is this thing?" And it's a product that ultimately around the table you can have that conversation. And so that turned into us being able to then develop a coaching product. So once we got really clear on saying, "Hey, this is who we're going to own, reaching out to, and this is the transformation we're going to provide," it really aligned all of our marketing, all of our messaging, and our product creation. And that's what really took us, it's the margin. Obviously, the business isn't what it once was, but there was a ceiling on that business at 70 to 80% margin. And that wasn't the vision. Michael had $100 million vision. And so, it's like, potentially not wanting to be the Franklin Covey, but a modern day, the best way to talk about it's kind of modern day Franklin Covey with what we were happening. And, funny enough that you went back to the planner. Franklin Covey gave up the planner, tried to go digital. We did the opposite and had way more success, and so, and they're months away. This is like probably not public information, but months away from rolling out an app, which I think will be the next iteration that will really take them to the next level, because I think there's people that'll always do print and physical, and there's some people that need the app. They've just kind of built their whole productivity in a digital setting, even though we know it's not as effective just scientifically. that they need something digital. And I think that that'll really, really take them to the next level.
Yeah, man, that's freaking fantastic. All right. In wrapping this up, instead of asking my guests to recommend 3 books, which I feel like is like the end of every podcast, like I've recently, since starting this podcast, given myself permission to stop reading a book if I don't enjoy it, right? Like, which was really, really hard for me.
Me too. Yes. And especially being in the publishing background, I'm like, man, if I'm going to start, I got to finish it,
So like now that I've done that though, like my reading is like went through the roof, right? Because if I don't enjoy it, I just stop, and it never like just, sits there, and I, avoid it at all costs. So because of it, like I'm getting through a lot more content. So I always like to ask my guests, what's the one book that you think has made the biggest impact on the way you do business, the way you look at life, the way you look at things? Like if it had to be just one book, which I know is hard, but I get unique recommendations all the time, and I'm able to put them in action very quickly because of how we ask this question.
Yeah. So it's hard to distill it down to one, but I would say the book that probably transformed more, it was Measure What Matters by John Doerr.
Okay.
And this is where kind of the KPIs kind of came out of how KPIs are being used in Silicon Valley and all of that, or OKRs. It's like OKRs, not KPIs. Objectives, key results. But really, it's forced me in my leadership of teams and people, and goal driven but metrics focused. Is when we can help a business owner get metrics focused, anything is possible. And it takes the hey, this is where I want my business to be. And we can actually prove it on paper that if we hit these metrics on a 30-day basis, it's going to be there. And what are the things we're going to do to measure those types of things and know if we're winning? And it's also the thing that can get your team rallied and there's just so many, it's like to take small bites of the apple before the biggest bite, and so it just shows you that we can systematically grow this business, and to the point where by doing it systematically is what forces scale. You don't have to ultimately start scaling your operation to get scale. It's actually systematically that's repeatable that drives scale, which is what's always exciting to kind of see that light bulb go off for business owners.
Love that. See, we get a unique recommendation in a book I haven't read by asking this really precise question. So thanks for that, Chad. Awesome, man.
Absolutely.
So we'll make sure and link up to your website. I see 7factorsofscale.com, and link up to you on social. Where are you most active?
Instagram. Yep. So.
All right. Perfect. So we'll link you up there. I saw you got a LinkedIn as well. I'll throw it in the show notes for everybody. And thanks so much for coming on, man. It was a pleasure having you.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it.
All right, everybody. That's it. Another episode. Go check out Chad. We'll see you guys in the next show. See you later.
Thanks for tuning in and showing me the nuggets. If you've been enjoying the podcast and find our content helpful, please visit our Apple Podcast page, hit the subscribe button, and leave us a review. Joe and the whole team have been working hard to bring more value to the show. Your feedback will go a long way in helping us make the show better and reach a wider audience.